Please welcome Northeast Ohio VA Healthcare System Director and CEO, Mrs. Susan Fuhrer, our Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you, Deacon Lupson. That was absolutely marvelous. Councilman Conwell, there's a spot right next to you to the mayor, so come on up, please. Glad to have you. So I have to tell you, I'm pretty overwhelmed to look into the audience, and I wish I could name every single one of you, because every single one of you has made this day come true. It doesn't matter if you're the DAV, the American Legion, the VFW, the AMVETS, woman or man, raising money through your service organizations, women cooking spaghetti dinners and cookies, selling cookies, and so many people. But there are a few people that I certainly would like to mention. Brian Gown. Brian Brown is with the National Fisher Foundation. And you guys are going to hear that here in the community, we together raised just over $3 million. But then, certainly. But the National Fisher Foundation is kicking in more than $9 million to build not one, but 2 Fisher homes in Cleveland, Ohio. You know, there are some places in the country that have 2 Fisher homes. But we are the only location in the United States that's getting 2 Fisher homes built at one time. And that is because of the need that we have. On any given day, there are 30-plus families that currently we're housing downtown whose loved ones are getting care at our medical center, and it is too far for these families to come. And now they are going to have a Fisher home. Brian, thank you. It is my distinct honor to introduce Deputy Secretary Terry Bowman. He came here from Washington, D.C. We've had a lovely day with him, and you're going to get to hear a few remarks from him in a bit. Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur is not quite here yet. She's on her way. She will be here before we're done. It is Women's History Month, and Marcy Kaptur is the longest tenured female congresswoman in the history of Congress. So when she comes in, we're going to give her a round of applause. Jacob is here from Congresswoman Kaptur's office. We also have representatives from Senator Brown's office. If you stand or wave. Congresswoman Fudge's office. There you guys are. Thank you. Congressman Gibbs' office. Thanks, guys, for coming up. Congressman Johnson's office. There you are. Thanks. Congressman Renace's office. I see Brian back there. Thank you guys very much for coming up. We also have State Senator Sandra Williams. She is here. Senator Williams. Okay. Chip Tanzel from the Ohio Department of Veterans Service. He is the service director. Chip, I saw you somewhere. Yay, Chip. You're going to hear later from the Cleveland City Mayor. Sorry, I apologize. Mr. Frank Jackson. The Cuyahoga County Council. Gus Frangos from the County Land Bank, for which this would not have happened. We would have no land if it wasn't for Gus and his partner in land accumulation, John Analifo from the Famicos Foundation. Is John here? There's John. Hi, John. Thank you. And as I said, the many service organizations, the Greater Cleveland chapter of the American Red Cross. I see George and Jessica. Thank you guys very much for coming. And everyone that contributed. So thank you. As I said, I'm having a hard time. You know, Joe Aquilina is now retired. Grace Rotter is now retired. It was probably more than a decade ago they told me what a Fisher House was, and I have to say I was pretty ignorant. I didn't know what one was. And they told me not only what it was, but they said we needed one. And in my role, it's not too often that I can't figure out how to get something done. And John Evans is back there nodding in support. But you know, getting Fisher Homes presented kind of a challenge for me because I am not allowed to fundraise, and no one on the VA staff can fundraise. And if you didn't notice, we're a little bit landlocked too. So not only do we not have land, I couldn't fundraise, and I had a lot of challenges. And that's where my good friend Tom Sweeney came in. And probably 7 years ago, Tom came. He came for a tour. He was wowed. And Deputy Secretary, I think we wowed you too today, too, didn't we? And he said, you know, what do you need? And I said, you know, we provide great care. Our doctors and nurses do a great job. We have a modern new hospital. We have compassionate nurses. And we've got a CBOC system for outlying clinics so that every veteran can get access within 30 minutes or 30 miles. But I don't have a Fisher House. And a Fisher House does so much more than allow a place for veterans to stay, their families to stay. It provides a place where families can heal right alongside the veterans. So no matter how great the medical care is, if you don't have your loved ones that are there challenging you, loving you, supporting you, and if you're in a hospital bed and you're worried about your loved ones, you're not going to heal. And Tom Sweeney, along with Rick DeShant and Doug Harvey, they said, we're going to raise this money for you. And they have worked tirelessly for the last 7 years to come up with $3.3 million from so many generous people to make this day happen. I cannot extend my appreciation, and it is from the bottom of my heart, and it is on behalf of all of the staff, the 5,400 staff of the Northeast Ohio Hospital System, our veterans, the 112,000 veterans and their families that count on us and trust us with their care, that I thank you for your dedication, support, perseverance, and passion for our nation's veterans. So thank you. Now, Tom, if you could please come up. Tom is representing the Greater Cleveland Fisher House Foundation. Tom and his team, as I said, spent the better part of 7 years working to make this dream a reality. And it is clear, without the leadership of Tom, and frankly, your just darn perseverance, none of us would be here. So, Tom, thank you.
You know, it's funny, I'm Irish, and my father told me many, many times that, he said, Tom, he said, there's no use being Irish if you can't be thick, you know? So, I am thick. Well, I am Tom Sweeney. I'm an infantry sergeant from Vietnam. We were called grunts. And you are called the keepers of this thing that we refer to as our veteran community. It's not just veterans. It's wives, husbands, children, friends, and their friends. Simply put, it's everybody who gives a damn. You are the people that I believe in. Here's something to consider on this groundbreaking day. Ladies and gentlemen, America is a prayer. A prayer said softly, but acted upon by you with loyalty, determination, and intent. Pray for America today. As for all of us here today, we do share an unshakable belief, no matter how you worship or believe, that we were created to be free, to live in history, and create a sane, rational history in this temporary, hazardous, magnificent adventure of living and trying to make human life just a little more human. You know what veterans want. You know what they need to be included again into civilian life. If there's a call to action, it is this. Think, feel, talk, tell your own story, Nobody else can do it better. Talk about what you have come to believe and know. You know it's not a war cry, it's not a war story, it's a prayer for understanding the reason America was born, the reason it exists today. Tell that story. Involve yourself and speak for those who volunteered for us and their families. Advocate in education, the job market, medical care, medical treatment. Make the case for America and her volunteer veterans firmly, keeping in mind that in this America, debate is not allowed. It is required. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most liberal experiment on our planet, and I have yet to meet the person who wants to see it end. The board of the Greater Cleveland Fisher House raised more than 3.4, that's a correction, Susan, $3.4 million. Now that money came from every corner, every level, every facet of life in our cities, our counties, and our communities, east, west, and south. Veterans, their wives, husbands, friends, their children, corporations, organizations, and clubs of every description. They did that because they, too, give a damn. None of us were ever professional fundraisers, not me, a retired news anchor, not Doug Harvey, who was playing in the high-tech world of corporate computer systems, and not Rick DeShant, a retired Coast Guard commander, who's now serving as executive director of veteran services at Tri-C. But thankfully, we did have the good sense to form an advisory board and listen and learn and work on the advice and direction they gave us. That board, too, was committed to giving a damn. My late father said to me, "Son, in this world, it's better to be lucky than good," and he was right. We were lucky. So who are these people who came to our aid, our assistance? Eventually, the question answered itself. It is you, ladies and gentlemen. Each and every one of you. You are the reason that we succeeded. You are the model. You are diverse. You are multi-ethnic. You're multiracial. You are an integral part of the veteran community as a whole. This event today honors you. All we needed was a Fisher House. Now we will have two. Doug Harvey and I were at a meeting at the VA some time ago, and David Coker, president of the Greater Cleveland or Fisher House Foundation, ducked out with us in a hallway. He thanked our board for its effort, and then he told us the foundation would not only match our $3.4 million, but would use its own accumulated funds to come up with an additional $6 million to build a second Fisher House on this very site on 105th Street. I got to tell you something. My late mother would call that a very successful guilt trip, and trust me, she would know. I can't say enough about two more people. Susan already mentioned them, and their staffs. Gus Frangos, the president of the County Land Bank, and his assistant, Jackie Nettle. And John Analifo, executive director of the Famicos Foundation. These people were the absolute key to this project. They had the expertise that we needed. They knew the ropes. And we had veteran money. And Analifo and Frangos assembled and sold us parcels, and we gladly paid for them. They worked for us, all of us. Gus Frangos and John Analifo are now and will forever be a friend to us, this city, and this county. The Greater Cleveland Fisher House is now morphing into the Friends of Cleveland Fisher House with the help of John Honey and the Strongsville VFW. So we will get the two Fisher houses and reclaim this entire block. They'll be paid for by you, ladies and gentlemen, your families, friends, and many, many more. The city block will be revitalized and become a Ronald McDonald House for veterans and their families. You see, families comfort their veteran, but they also heal each other as they stay in the Fisher House. The touch and kiss of a wife or mother, the strong handshake and macho hug of a father or husband, the unrestrained love of a child or adult offspring is reason enough to live, love, and smile to any veteran of any war. The Greater Cleveland Fisher House will care for the families of veterans of World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and whatever combat comes as a result of battling ISIS or other extremist groups. We will wait and pray for them until they all come home. It was an anthem during World War II. It was on billboards. It was heard in song. I was aware of it when I was a mini kid. My mother prayed for my father, who was a Marine on Guadalcanal. She prayed for me in combat in Vietnam, and then for my brother, who was a Navy medic assigned to the Marines in Vietnam. Today at 72, I have the temerity to add this. We will wait and pray for them until they all come home. But if they are broken, we will fix them as best we can, and we'll do it with the help of their families, the VA, and the Fisher House, and the Fisher Foundation. I am grateful to stand with you today, and I offer true and sincere thanks, but my thanks is profound to you for giving a damn. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I believe in you.
I'm glad I went first. Tom is a hard act to follow, but if anybody's up for the job, it is Councilman Kevin Conwell. And so Kevin Conwell has been a great community partner. He lives in the neighborhood. He works with University Circle Incorporated. Chris Ronayne is here to make sure that the VA does what we're supposed to do. I think when it comes to economic development, we're holding our own.
Yeah,
We're holding our own. And he's got some exciting news as well as the mayor to talk about. Kevin is a true champion of veterans. He worked very hard to make today happen. And in his spare time, he's in a band and he comes to the hospital and plays to entertain the veterans. So without further ado, Councilman Conwell.
You know, I'll be there April the 5th from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock playing for free. I always do come in and play for free for the veterans. I mean, it's the least I can do. You fought for us to have a great life over here in the United States. So that's the least that I can do. And let me say this. Tom Sweeney, when you first reached out to me, with this project here, this guy's a fighter. He's a fighter. He came, he visited me, he drove around the neighborhood, talked with the residents in the community. He had an up-close view of working with us, and I want to thank you. And you said, I want to go see the mayor. That's what you said to me. You did. You said, I want to go see the mayor because I need this project to work. And I brought you in, and guess what? The mayor, he's a military man himself. He's a military man himself. And you are from the Army, is that correct, Mr. Mayor? From the Army. So he knew, and he opened the door. The same day we reached out to him, he opened the door and he understood that we needed to have the Fisher House right here at this spot. And the mayor's administration has been working with us from day one to make this dream come a reality for this groundbreaking here. So let's give him, again, a round of applause. Gus Frangles, man, you helped champion the project as well. You called me up on the phone. You brought me into your office. you narrated, you said, Councilman, you got to help carry this project through. This is a great project. It will help your neighborhood. It will benefit the community, and it will be a magnet not only for families and veterans' families here, it will be a magnet to help this neighborhood to grow. And you're correct. And you got busy and start talking with landowners and start consolidating land and pushing the vision and the dream. You as well as with Jack Schron. You raised your hand up, man. Take an applause. You're great also. We want to thank you. You were here when we first started pushing this. This was our family to push it. And you told me that this will be great. And we are so happy. Let me tell you this also. Make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Oh, my lovely, gorgeous wife, Yvonne Conwell. I can't miss her. This is my wife over here. She is your county council rep. She was in meetings with us as well. And since we're pushing families and we're talking about families, this is not only a building that we're talking about keeping families together. And when you have strong families from here, you have strong communities. So we're talking about families. It's not just a building. And I want the Fisher House, Tom, just to work with my community, and the community will open to work with them. Because this building here and the families here bring a lot of human capital to the community. And it will help my community to grow. Right around here, people have already talking to me about building homes. They're already talking with me, Jack Schron, the county, and I know you guys will keep your word. I have my wife over here also, will be in my ear, about building and developing East 105th Street. So when you come back next year, we will start working on building a new East 105 as well. So it's a magnet, and it's bringing energy, not only here for the veterans, you also are fighting for my residents, and I thank you very much, and God bless. That was the shortest speech I ever gave.
So Councilman Conwell said just about all there is to say. Frank Jackson is the mayor of the city of Cleveland. He has been the mayor for 4 consecutive terms. He is a Vietnam veteran. And I can attest that every Veterans Day at 6 p.m., he is in our homeless domiciliary with 122 veterans having Veterans Day dinner. Pretty cool. And he is a great friend to the VA. You're great for the city. Your commitment is second to none. And now, sir, I invite you up for a few words.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I want to congratulate the National Fisher House Foundation, local, and the VA for the success here, because it did take a lot of work, a lot of effort on a lot of people's part. And as was mentioned, those people who participated, and I imagine there are some who participated who were not mentioned, but I know that everything that we do in Cleveland and we're successful at, we do it as a community. And this was one thing that I don't think anybody said no to. It was just a matter of what do I do or how do I participate. And that was because people wanted to honor those who have served and thank them for their service. And this is how we do it. So I want to, again, congratulate you for your success, and also thank all of you for your service. Thank you very much.
The mayor is very humble. None of this would have happened without his support, so thank you. So as I mentioned before, Marcy Kaptur, Congresswoman Kaptur, was on her way from Ohio's 9th District. Some may know that she had some, just a little bit of business to do in Washington yesterday, so the fact that she landed in Toledo and made it to Cleveland is just a testament of her dedication to her mission and to the veterans of these great United States. Congresswoman, we announced before you came, in honor of Women's History Month, that you have timed that you are the longest standing female congresswoman in the history of this country. Unbelievable. You are paving the way forward for so many young women. So thank you very much. And with that, as you serve your 17th term, I invite you to come up and say a few words.
Director Furr, thank you so very much. And I want to thank Councilman Conwell for escorting me up. I wasn't sure that I could get up on the stage with a narrow skirt, but we did it with his help. Thank you. So I wish I had your height, really. And I was able to enter the room listening to Tom and the tremendous effort that you've made to make this day possible. Thank you. Thank you so very much. And Mayor Jackson, you know, I go to a lot of events with Mayor Jackson. He said more words today than I've heard at events in the past. So, and I'd like to hear more from him on occasion, you know, because I know the great job that he does. So, Mayor, you're not like some of the folks with whom I serve, who say a lot and do nothing. And the country really did something last night in the House and also then today in the Senate in passing a very important bill to allow our government to operate across all of its departments, including the Department of Veterans Affairs, with additional funding to serve our veterans. And until I got to Congress many years ago, I always thought that would be a given. And one of the most shocking moments I came upon was as the most junior member of the Veterans Affairs Committee and the only woman in those days, that it required the combined effort of all of the veterans organizations of our country, many of whom are represented well here today. I can tell them because they're all handsome. And they are all forward. So there's a readiness there that exists in their psyches that is America's strength. How hard we had to fight to get for them the benefits and services that they earned. And when, after my first decade of service, I joined Louis Stokes on the Appropriations Committee, I learned so much from him. And I can remember when I first arrived, he sort of looked at me, you know, I can still see that look. He was much taller than I am as well. And how kind he was to me. And how he traveled to what was then the 9th District. And in neither of our minds did we ever imagine that I would now be standing here. I know I'm in Marcia Fudge's district, my dear sister. And but that I would actually represent part of Cuyahoga County. The imaginings of what happens down in Columbus that does all of that is beyond me. But I am very honored to be here today at this truly historic occasion as I look out at this really ebullient audience and I see your faces and you've each contributed in your own way and I really see America at its best. Sometimes I serve at moments when we're at our worst. And yet the strength of America is in each of you and what you have accomplished here today. Don't ever doubt that strength. Even when you see commotion in Washington or other places, the real America is there. It is there working every day, improving our country, making contributions in hidden ways that will never be seen by the general public. And yet you're a part of that strong sinew that holds us together. Now, my able staff member, Jacob Smith, who's a wounded warrior himself, I know he's somewhere in the audience here, he drives the VA crazy for me. There he is. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you for your service in Iraq. Thank you for your work in the U.S. Army and for all the soldiers you fight for every day, regardless of whether they were Army or otherwise. And the joy you have today, I see it in your face. He told me as I walked in, he said, make sure and tell him there's no other place in the country that has 2 Fisher houses other than Bronx, New York. And I can guarantee you the self-sacrifice that this represents and the fact that the Fisher Foundation saw this and decided to have 2 houses here is such a credit to the greater Cleveland community that is serving America, because truly any veteran can come here and may come here to this grand, grand facility and to get the services that Stokes offers. I wish I had a Stokes hospital, a VA in every community I represent. Thank you for the work that you do every day. The oldest friend I have in the room, just by, not years, but just by friendship, is sitting right in the front row. I have to recognize Belle Ruth Napperstack, who is just such a tremendous Clevelander and didn't originally come from Cleveland, but settled here with her husband, Dr. Arthur Napperstack, whose work is world-renowned. And I just made me very happy to see her here today. I didn't know that she would be here. So I just wanted to say thank you for what you do for our country. I hope the Cleveland community recognizes the health constellation that you have here. I know you do, that embraces the world, and what you have built in your own lifetimes, building on a past legacy, but building it forward. And it has helped countless people. Yesterday I was with a young gentleman who worked on the Appropriations Committee that finally helped us move this very important bill over the line. And he said, you know, Marcy, when you go to Cleveland tomorrow, tell them they saved my mother's life. Across the street, she wasn't a veteran, but the lack of services in other parts of the country that has caused her tremendous illness. And also this community saved my brother's life a year and a half ago. And those kinds of contributions to America are priceless to every family you touch, to every veteran's family you touch, and the building blocks of the greatest country on earth. Thank you to all those who made this day possible. Just know you have a partner in kind here, and I hope that the research that occurs at the Stokes VA, Lou was always pushing research, always pushing Cleveland, always pushing improvements at this hospital complex. I consider this very holy ground. In fact, I have represented a Catholic sister who, anytime we dedicated a veterans facility anywhere in the northern Ohio, would plant little holy medals in the soil. And I sort of mentally do that today here on her behalf as this facility is dedicated. Onward Cleveland, onward Fisher House, onward America. God bless all of you for being true patriots. God love you.
Congresswoman, thank you very much for the strong work you do in Washington to make sure that the staff of the Lewis Stokes Cleveland VA Medical Center have the tools that we need to provide world-class health care to our veterans. And I can tell you, regardless of what's going on in Washington, we know our mission at Boots on the Ground, and we steadfast always do what is the very best thing for our veterans. So thank you very much for your service. Now it is my distinct honor to introduce my boss's boss's boss. I don't know how many bosses there are, but there's a few bosses in there. Deputy Secretary Thomas Bowman. Thomas Bowman rejoined the Department of Veterans Affairs as Deputy Secretary on September 6, 2017. So that in itself should be a good, strong testament that he actually came back after he left. So thank you very much for that, sir. He previously served at the VA for more than 10 years, including many senior level positions, to include the Chief of Staff to the VA Secretary. Before becoming Deputy Secretary, Mr. Bowman was the Majority Staff Director of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. He has also served as the Chief of Staff to the Chief Justice of the Rhode Island Supreme Court, Senior Counsel to the House Government Reform and Oversight Committee, and Assistant District Attorney in Southeastern Massachusetts. Mr. Bowman is the son of a Navy chief who was at Pearl Harbor when it was attacked. Mr. Bowman was commissioned in the Marine Corps. I think at one point you were affiliated with 325, correct? Right here. Through NROTC, served 30 years as an infantry officer and judge advocate, retiring as a colonel in 1999. Mr. Bowman holds a law degree from Western New England College School of Law in Springfield, Massachusetts, and a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Texas. He's got a son and a daughter-in-law who are with the Coast Guard serving currently. So with that, sir, it is my distinct honor to invite you up and say a few words. Thank you.
You know, one of the, first of all, I have to apologize for my voice. Just getting over a cold. 1 week ago, I flew down to Florida, and I had a great big booming voice. I arrived in Florida like a lot of people from Washington do. They attend events and they speak. I fly back to Washington, D.C., and I can't speak the whole weekend. So my big concern was whether or not I would have any voice to come here and join you. So I do have a little bit of a voice. But I did have some prepared remarks, but when I woke up this morning at about 4 o'clock, I said I'm not gonna follow those prepared remarks. I feel that I am part of this community, and let me tell you why. My mother was born here in Cleveland in 1921. Her family name was Nowlin. She married a tall, strapping, 6'7" Navy chief during World War II. And the rest is history because we have I have 6 siblings. Last night I was on the phone with them and I told them where I was, and of course all of them have their own recollections of what Mom used to tell them about her growing up and being born here, and then ultimately moving over to Lakewood, where she spent her teen years before going out to San Diego. So I'm talking to my brothers and my 2 sisters in separate phone calls. And I said, well, gee, you're going to Cuyahoga County. And I said, yeah, that's where I'm going. I'm going to Cuyahoga County. So today at lunch, I said, geez, I better make sure I can pronounce this right. So I asked Susan, I said, Susan, I'm part of the family here now. I mean, my mother was born here. Is it Cuyahoga? And they go, no, it's Cuyahoga. And then they went around the room, and one gentleman said, the only one who has the right to say Cuyahoga is somebody who's lived here. And there was one person there who actually, was from here. So Cuyahoga. Now, I have a separate personal reason is that we're having a family reunion back in Nueces County, Texas, in about 2 months. And so my brothers and my 2 sisters told me, well, you bring a little bit of Cuyahoga County back with you. So I got a mason jar right under my seat. And after we shovel, I'm going to pack some of Cuyahoga and take them back to Nueces County, Texas. Congressman Kaptur, it's my pleasure to be here with you. And last night I tasted a little of it. I had a Manhattan, but it was an Ohio Manhattan. But Mr. Mayor, Councilman, everybody here, I could probably thank any number of them by title and name. We haven't had a personal relationship, but you can consider me part of your community now. When I said I kind of put my prepared remarks aside, I said, what would I really want to say, especially after all these individuals who have spoken? And I think that they have expressed everything that could be expressed, from gratitude for just the tremendous efforts on the part of everybody who contributed to making the 2 Fisher houses at one time another first for the Lewis Stokes VA community, veteran community. I said to myself, even though I've had the opportunity to be at a number of Fisher houses, I said, one of the things I've always heard is what other people, view as a Fisher house. It's a wonderful place to come. It's warm. It's loving. It takes care of needs that individuals who probably would not have had the means to be present with their loved one without something like a Fisher house. So I said to myself, really, what is a Fisher house? What is a Fisher house here at Lewis Stokes and every other VA medical center, as well as military health hospitals where they also have Fisher houses? And to me, what I think I can say on behalf of Secretary Shulkin, who is a doctor, his father was a veteran, who's very, very invested in VA healthcare and how we are exhibiting VA healthcare into the future. A Fisher House, to me, is part of the care that is provided at VA. It's not a place where people come and gather. They are part of the DNA of VA healthcare. I think most people who have a presence at a VA medical center without a Fisher House, they all wish they have one. And I think that how you all have come together as a community and been able to not only fund, but also exhibit the dedication, the patriotism, and the support of veterans in your community by finding the way to have two of them. You set the example. You provide the template that I would recommend that any VA medical center that doesn't have one use you as an example. But a Fisher House to me is a place where, and I heard it mentioned early on, it's where a family member will come and a veteran will be able to experience the personal touch of a child, the kiss of a spouse. Sometimes it may be in the last weeks of their lives. Others, it may be in front of a huge operation where there's great angst as to whether or not the individual will survive. But we all know the human condition is that we need each other. And to know that you have your spouse, your child, your significant other, your friend there with you helps you to recover. And that's what VA healthcare is all about. We take care of veterans, and to the degree that we can, we want to support and take care of their family members. And Fisher House, to me, is an integral part of when somebody says VA healthcare, the Fisher House is part of that care. So I, on behalf of Secretary Shulkin, I want to thank you for everything that you've done to make this come about. I, on a personal level, like I said, I visited a number of the Fisher Houses. One of the first secretaries that I served with was Secretary Tony Principi, and he was there as the secretary when 9/11 occurred and the war began to ramp up. And I was on a trip with him in 2003, and we were down in Florida, South Florida, and we went and visited a Fisher House. I had not visited one prior to that. And he said, Tom, I want you to realize that when somebody says national treasure, you're in one. Thank you very much for the Fisher Foundation, and thank you all. I'm glad to be back in Cuyahoga County.
So it's not Cleveland whiskey, but it is Cleveland chocolate with the Cleveland skyline. So welcome to Cuyahoga County, also known as Cleveland, sir. Thank you very much. So now we're down to the man of the hour. So a man with a huge heart that represents the National Fisher Foundation that is making today possible, and also the man that is coming with $9 million to make sure that we have not one but two Fisher homes. You know, Brian and Jennifer Kogut. Jennifer, we have not talked about Jennifer. Jennifer is here somewhere in Washington. She is the VA liaison. There's Jennifer. She is the VA liaison for the Fisher Foundation. And Jennifer and Brian have been staunch supporters from afar for the veterans in Northeast Ohio. And Brian is a U.S. Navy retired captain, and he has been with the foundation since 2010 and now serves as the Vice President of Community Relations. In this position, he coordinates with the Department of Defense, as the Deputy Secretary mentioned, the VA, local community groups, and medical centers to support existing Fisher houses. And he's getting a little cold. So with that, Brian Gown.
Knowing I was scheduled to be the last of 6 speakers, I tried to remember 2 things in drafting my remarks. First, the preceding speakers are probably going to cover everything I intend to say, And second, aside from that shovel line right there, I'm the only thing standing between you and the start of the weekend. So, thank you, fellow speakers, director, deputy secretary, councilman, mayor, congresswoman, and the amazing Tom Sweeney for being here today. Also, quickly, we'd just like to thank the color guard, our singer, deacon, all the VA staff that give us this nice warm tent so we're not freezing right now, and all of you veterans and everyone else out there who helped bring us to this point right here, right now. It's a special privilege for me to be here today and speak on behalf of Ken Fisher and the Fisher House Foundation. 30 years ago, my roommate Matt Colombo was from Cuyahoga. We were both young Navy lieutenants flying F-14 Tomcats right about the time that Top Gun came out. And let me tell you, that was a pretty cool time to be flying F-14s. So Matt and I graduated from Annapolis together, went through flight school together, and had just completed our first 6-month deployment overseas. 3 days before he was going to be my groomsman at my wedding, and a month before his own wedding, Matt and his pilot were killed when their jet crashed in a training accident over North Carolina. And every time I come through Cleveland, I think of Matt's family here in Aurora and the sacrifice they made on behalf of our nation. We owe it to the men and women who willingly place themselves in harm's way on our behalf and the families that sustain them. The care for them in their hour of need. And these two Fisher houses are going to do exactly that. A few years ago, I visited the Fisher houses at Walter Reed Military Medical Center. Back then it was called Bethesda Naval Hospital. And a reporter from the BBC was there interviewing a resident wounded warrior because he was doing a story about the whole Fisher House concept. So to stay out of the way, that morning I walked back into the kitchen. And there were family members getting ready for the start of their day. As these family members grabbed cereal, coffee, whatever else they needed before they headed over to the medical center to stand vigil by the bedside of their loved one, I was mesmerized by the interaction. There were members from about 7 different families there, all of whom were complete strangers until arriving in that house, in an unfamiliar city, miles away from their home, and facing less than ideal circumstances. I watched an elderly lady grab a young wife, look her in the eyes, and say, "It's going to be all right," and give her a big hug. I watched a parent pick up a child, give them a loving embrace, laugh and joke with them, get that child infectious laugh. And then I realized, as marvelous as this was, it wasn't even her child. These 7 families of strangers had become a family, their own informal support network that was going to sustain each other, so they in turn could sustain and hug and encourage and care for their loved one over in that military hospital. I wanted to drag that reporter right then, get him out of there in the kitchen and show him, you know, there's a 10-second soundbite we use. It's like the Ronald McDonald House for the military and the VA. You know, it's this many nights of lodging saves this much money. I mean, this house right here, these 2 houses together, over the course of a year will provide over 11,000 nights of lodging. That's more than $1 million just in lodging that they'll save. But it's more than nights of lodging. It's more than people not having to sleep in their cars. It's more than the money saved. It's love. That's what these houses are about. It's love, a family's love. And as our motto goes, of family's love is the best medicine. Now, Tom Sweeney, God bless him over there for all you've done and stuck through this. Tom's a Vietnam vet. As I look around, I see several Vietnam vets in the audience today. Thank you, all of you, for your sacrifices. In particular, all our vets, I thank you, but in particular our Vietnam vets. When I returned from the war, there were American flags and yellow ribbons and banners and people thanking me for my service. I've got an older brother who served in Vietnam. When he returned, he was told not to wear his uniform so that people wouldn't spit on him. Our nation's come a long way in appreciating our veterans, and to each of you, I'm going to quote our chairman, Ken Fisher. While we weren't able to be there for you then, we're honored to be there for you now. Welcome home. I commend Tom Sweeney and the Greater Cleveland Fisher House for their unfailing commitment over many years and their remarkable success meeting and exceeding their goal of $3 million. That is nothing short of spectacular. That said, our work's not done. There's still an opportunity for the community, local organizations, corporations, all of you to contribute to that $9 million plus that we're going to fund through the Fisher House Foundation.
Okay, so I'm gonna thank everyone very much. I know that it's chilly. Just one last thing. Everybody has said it very, very well, but if you are a veteran or a family member of a veteran, please stand. These Fisher houses are for you and your fellow comrades and your families. Thank you. And so now we are going to shovel some dirt.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to lead you through this. One, please stick your shovels in the dirt. Two, lift the dirt. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to look at the camera. 3, turn the dirt.